Hello, everybody. Welcome to a strangely lit Sunday Funday. Yes, if you, real quick, I'm going to talk about some behind the scenes stuff and also why you are not seeing a Richard Jewell or Jumanji the Next Revolution. Jumanji Next, I don't care. Get to talk about that real quick before I can get to the movie, of course. Now, the first thing, if you're wondering why is the lighting a little different, very quick explanation is just that my old lighting broke. Literally, just went to turn it on when I wanted to start to do the review like nearly 2 hours ago. Dead. I'm like, okay, well, I get to go get a new one. And it's taking me that long just to find one. I'm like, alright, there, this is decent. Lighting's okay here. And the reason why there's not a Richard Jewell or a Jumanji 2, or actually technically Jumanji Redux 2 review is very simple. There's not a lot of reasons that Megan and me really wanted to see either movie. Like, Megan was a little bit more jazzed towards possibly seeing Jumanji, but even then, as you all probably remember, I was apoplectic at best towards Jumanji. Megan was very similarly kind of on the whole thing. And all things considered, Richard Jewell, I wasn't like eager to see. I was like, oh, okay, it's Clint Eastwood again trying to talk about the poor white man being going after by the system and the federal government. Clint Eastwood's kind of getting a little, one knows the best way to describe him. So again, there's just a lot of apoplecticness. I was slightly more like, maybe it'll be okay. Megan really didn't care about seeing it. So instead, we compromised and went ahead and saw this film, which of course is Six Underground.
I wasn't sure it would work. I mean, I wasn't sure. I had a suspicion, but God, this is all so fucking dangerous.
Now, the reason why you're just seeing me talking about it is actually probably part of the issues with the film that I'm going to get into here in just a second. And it's mostly because Megan was not able to really keep herself entranced with the movie all that much. And I do not blame her one bit. Not saying that this movie's bad to give away an early review or any early opinions about it. Just gonna say, I will fully admit, this is a movie not for everybody. Now, you may be asking, well, what the hell is Six Underground? Long story short, it is a Netflix movie that recently was released, and it's a Michael Bay flick, out of all things that it can be. Michael Bay directed this film. He had it written, of course, by other people, because Michael Bay's not really a writer of any sort. At least he fully admits this fact. And it is starring Ryan Reynolds and pretty much a cast of kind of, at best, like B players is a nice way to describe it. All the other actors and actresses that star alongside him, they may share almost as much screen time as Ryan Reynolds, but he is the star, for lack of a better way to describe it. And that is fine. Ryan Reynolds can actually be a really good leading man. I mean, he can actually be very charismatic. And it's not this movie is bad. It has a lot of the things, though, that if you're not a hardcore Michael Bay fan and you're not really jazzed up with, random chase scenes that kind of go on for a bit too long, or action sequences that go on for a bit too long, you're going to be fairly bored with this movie. And I think that's one of Megan's issues that she was having. Personally, I wasn't as bored with it because I actually, for lack of a better way to put it, I actually am kind of a bit of a fan of Michael Bay. I know, shocking, a critic, even though I am not a critic. I don't even pretend I'm a critic. But a critic that likes Michael Bay. I understand the reason for his existence. I understand how he does things. I get where he comes from with his shots for the most part. And for lack of a better way to put it, I actually kind of jazz with a lot of his movies. Even some of his more notoriously bad movies, I actually don't hate as much as many people do. So just Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. I do not think it's a very good movie. I think there's a lot of problems with the flick, but I think it is by far much better than many people give it credit for, saying it's one of the worst films of all time. Trust me, there are many, many films that are much worse than Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. In fact, I would dare argue that Age of Extinction was probably his more, back lack of a better way to put it, probably one of the weakest out of all the Transformers films. And hell, I would say that Bumblebee, even though people really did like it, I liked parts of it, but there's a lot I did not care for, mostly because it's, lack of a better way to put it, it's like not what I go to see Transformers for. Or sure, it's good in certain areas. There's a lot of there's a lot of boringness to me, especially considering I'm used to the Michael Bay largeness, and that's the thing I do enjoy about all of his movies. Michael Bay is not a man to squelch on anything. Very much like Roland Emmerich, he is going to do things he's going to do things big, he's going to do them loud, and he is going to be very much in your face. Much more even than I would say Roland Emmerich. Subtlety, thy name is not Michael Bay, which is okay. And that's kind of one of the things. I'm not a very subtle person myself, so I get the lack of subtlety behind some of his things. I get the ideas that he does want to try and get across, at least in the director's chair. The issue here with Six Underground is it's a movie that's it's about 2 hours or so long, and it really needs to be about 2.5, maybe nearly 3 hours long, and that's a bit too much Michael Bay for me. It's really a film that, for lack of a best way to describe it, think pretty much as high-tech billionaire, or he is technically a high-tech billionaire. He's not Tony Stark, but he is a tech billionaire who decides to use all his billions and all of his money and wealth and everything to go after a evil dictator. In fact, the whole idea is that there's going to be multiple evil dictators they're going to go after eventually. At least I believe that's the idea that's waiting to get across. Now that is a fine enough idea right then and there. The problem is there's not a lot of great setup the movie does, because the first thing it throws you into is a car chase sequence with Dave Franco doing his Best Baby Driver impersonation. And it's like, hey, it's cool. There's fucking bloody too, and this is a rated R film. I will go ahead and make that abundantly clear. This movie is not gonna hold back shit. But it is, you see people just flying out of cars or going to pieces, cars splitting into thousands of parts. It reminds me of some of the dumber but funner parts of The Rock. Those who have never seen The Rock, go check it out. It's a lot of fun. And then it's worth every second. But it's because of this lack of subtlety and this, kind of where it throws us into things, and it literally is in the middle of a sequence. It poses problems because narratively they have to begin talking about the setup to all these characters after it. We learn that each one of them, they simply have a code name, or just say numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And to be fair, 6, to give away the first 20 minutes, Dave Franco dies. He kills himself technically. And I don't mind that, because I think I get where it was trying to go. It's trying to say, it's like, okay, these characters are just expendables. They are the expendables without being 80s action stars, or the 90s action stars that we all know and love and want to see them kick each other's asses. They are much more than simply that, but in the same vein, you want something more there. Some of these characters aren't as well explained. Some are a little bit more heavily hinted at. Like, for instance, eventually there is a gentleman. He has an actual name. His name is Blaine, but he's eventually turned into Seven. And he is a sniper, and he is a former Delta Marine sniper, or Delta Force sniper. I mean, so much shit by Army brats, and I do not blame you. But he obviously has some hangups over the fact that he believed he could have taken out this terrorist who ended up killing most of his team, and he was one of the few surviving members. And that's actually some decent hangup to have, and kind of motivates his character. The others, at best, like there's a hitman who he's got some hangups between him and his mom, who obviously has dementia or Alzheimer's. And because of that, he's wanting to be a better man. It's kind of there. Then there's also Four. He's probably one of the best actors next to Ryan Reynolds and the technical bad guy. And he's a guy who's a thief. He's a pretty much he's what everybody thinks of those people who do all the parkour videos and will flip flop over people's cars and shit and off of rooftops. He is the epitome of that. And he's cool. His character's interesting, but there's not a lot of reason beyond the fact that he doesn't want to be, obviously arrested and charged with, horrible crimes. Hell, I don't remember them even talking about the one doctor they have that works with them, who she's also, I want to say she's 4 or 3. That tells you one thing. I begin to get them mixed up. The best thing I can tell you about her is she's a doctor, but there's nothing else to her beyond that. I think she was supposed to be hinted as a guy that worked, or a lady that worked alongside for the flip-flopping dude, but I don't remember, and they never really showed her backstory. Hell, even this one CIA spook is how they kind of introduce them. It's pretty much like very kind of Suicide Squad and all that. It's like, hey, here's their number, here's what they kind of are. And it's not as egregious as Suicide Squad, where it's taking like 30 minutes to eventually get through to everybody. But the CIA spook, I don't know how, like, she supposedly killed her life off or anything like that, and I don't know how Ryan Reynolds' character, who was one, how he was able to talk her into it. And then we get the, like, crux of why this whole story is happening. It is Ryan Reynolds wants to kill not Bashir al-Assad. They go after this guy who's totally in a Middle Eastern country, and he's supposed to be, pretty much he's gassing and killing his own people by the thousands, millions even. And, okay, cool, that's a reason to go after him. He's a bad guy. But why not just make him Bashir al-Assad, the evil, dictator over Syria? It's like a lot of this is sort of set in the realish world, like there's real locations, but then they have this one country they go to, Turkestan or something like that. It's like, why not just make it Syria? Just say it's Syria. Of course, you're not going to be able to film in Syria. You're not going to actually be able to shoot in Syria. But what is the fucking dictator of Syria going to do? Sue you? Fuck him. It's like, let him have at it. Make fun of a horrible human being who is committing horrible human rights violations daily. And have at it. Who gives a shit? I don't know. It's one of the weird written parts of the movie. And like I said, the issue with introducing all these different characters very early on, it's not a problem. It's just their motivations are never fully well explained. Like, a few of them are, most of them are not, and because of that, they're just kind of there to be quippy. In fact, one guy, his whole thing during one of their heist sequences is to pretty much spout out movie lines the entire time. I don't know, it was kind of funny. I kind of laughed at it. And that's pretty much the gist of the entire movie. You have a covert, kind of like ghost group of people who are going after evil people to stop their evil means. Ryan Reynolds' character he's very odd, the best way to describe him. There are times when he shows great humanity, but other times he doesn't. There's other times his character is kind of at odds with what he says. raises some issues for trying to believe him. And then on top of everything, the rest of the actors, they do great with what they're given. They're just not given a ton to do except for just to be badasses. But despite all that, it's still a hell of a lot of fun. Like, even though the writing is at its best mediocre and sometimes kind of poor, there's these actors who are actually able to elevate most of what they're doing and most of what they're having to say. And they're able to make me half time kind of forget that I'm kind of watching a kind of sloppily put together film that probably is trying to be the introduction to a new film franchise. I mean, I don't mind that, just it's kind of obvious at times. So I'm kind of torn with this movie. And I'm just going to give it the score that I thought of at the time. And the more I try to dissect it, and the more I'm like, no, but I really like this a lot. I like this a lot. I mean, there's points where Ryan Reynolds turns a giant boat into a giant magnet and people are just flying back and forth. Oh, and that's another thing I will actually admit. Even though this movie does use some CGI, it never feels as egregious as it did sometimes feel in Michael Bay films. There's a lot of times where he's using practical effects and they look fantastic. There's some good practical use of effects here. It's like, oh, these look really good. And then there's CGI mixed with some practical that it blends very well. It feels a lot more minimalistic than it really than somebody had to make it, especially for Michael Bay. So I gotta give this movie some props. It did some stuff really good. It's not for everybody. I fully admit that. You are not gonna wander into this thinking, oh, I'm going to watch this highbrow film or anything. No, you're gonna watch a zany, covert, like heist kind of film that is not gonna make the most sense at times, and in fact, really feels like it needs to sit down and take a breath every now and then. You're going to watch that and you're going to be a little confounded at times. But if you are able to get into the mindset of, I'm going to watch a big, dumb, stupid action movie, best way to think of it is think of some of the dumber but not quite completely idiotic Stallone action movies from the 80s and 90s. Hell, even Arnold had some of those as well. And you kind of got this flick, and I guess that's the reason why I have kind of a, like, I could be the mean critic. So much it still reminds me of some of that good stuff that I loved. So I'm kind of torn, and I'm going to give it the score that I still feel at heart is the best thing for me, even though I'm kind of shitting on it. There's a lot good. I mean, like I said, the actors in this all do a really damn good job with what they're given. Some are not given much, and they still perform admirably. Some of them still make you feel like, okay, they're just an utter badass in the best way. Some characters are just wallpaper, but that's because they're not given anything to fucking do. But it's an 8. It's very high, I fully admit that, and there's a lot of dumb sometimes at times at this film, and there's points where you feel like your brain's waiting to leak out of your skull, but there's also just so much damn fun in the movie, and that's the big thing. That is the thing I've been looking forward to the most. Like, despite everything that's been going on wrong in the world and what has been going on wrong in my life or anything, I just want sometimes a big, dumb, stupid action movie. It doesn't always have to have the most meaning to me. It doesn't have to have the most balance to everything. It just needs to be big, dumb, and stupid. And this was all of that. And so I enjoyed the hell out of it. If you are into big, dumb, stupid action movies, I think you're going to fairly enjoy it. If that's not your cup of tea, you need a little bit more substance, you're not going to like this. This is going to really not resonate with anybody but like hardcore people who like the dumb 90s action movies. How Michael Bay technically fits into that with what Armageddon in The Rock, which I do still love. If you like Con Air, you're going to love this, because there's a lot of silly moments, much akin to what I would think from Con Air. So, hey, that's 6 Underground, but I don't know what making me my... next week, we're going to have a real film that you can go see in theaters, Because, of course, Megan and me are going to talk about the biggest movie probably of this year, next to, I would say, Endgame, that we have been I have been looking forward to. And that, of course, is Star Wars, Rise of the Skywalkers. Or Skywalker, I think is what it is. But either way, we will be back next week with the last of the Star Wars. And we'll see y'all then. So until then, everybody, bye-bye.